25 years ago. So I kind of consider myself a moderate, that if I am up in the air on something fiscally, I'd go conservative. Socially, I'd go left. But, I've said this about Trump before. He's trying to sell me an America that doesn't exist. Like, I'm 60. I don't remember anything before like 6 or 7 years old. But for the last 53 years of my life, outside of the pandemic year, I've loved America. I've lived everywhere. Tampa, Vegas. I've been kind of poor, middle class. Now I'm better off than most. But he's trying to sell me this America stinks, and I just don't see it. I live in a nice neighborhood in LA. It's not a top 6 or 7 neighborhood in LA. It's not a Beverly Hills, a Malibu, a Brentwood, a Bel Air, Hancock Park. It's not like one of those swanky neighborhoods. But I don't see crime. I'm not stumbling over homeless people. I see happy people. Dodger Stadium's full. Leads Major League Baseball in attendance. Laker games are full. NFL games are full. They have money in their pocket. LAX is packed. I just saw a record airline revenue over the weekend. I'm constantly being sold in America by Donald Trump. Crime rates are skyrocketing. No, they're actually not. Starting in 2023, they have plummeted coast to coast, over 200 cities. Violent crime rates are down. I mean, Los Angeles and some cities may tick up in certain areas, but it's in America he's selling me. It would be like watching your football team and they play well and win, and your neighbor says they're playing terribly and keep losing. No, they're winning and they're not playing terribly. Like, you can't keep selling me on how bad the country I live in is, because it's not bad for me or my friends. I have a friend that's a stay-at-home dad. He's not rich. I have friends who work part-time, starting up businesses, who have worked at the same place forever. I have middle-class friends. They're not complaining about their life constantly, and I don't know what they are politically. I really don't. I don't talk about politics with my friends. I talk about my wife. I talk about sports. I talk about, we talk about guy stuff. So I'm not somebody that is, if you don't have policies that I connect with, and you're always grouching and bitching about the other side, I'm not really interested in you. Trump once tried to sell a vodka and acknowledges he never drank, ever. He's never really drank alcohol, but he tried to sell a vodka. So I've thought for a long time he's just kind of a con artist. But I was sitting there thinking this morning that if, let's say, I got busted for some really bad crime in court, a drug crime, and my wife did too, in a separate case. And then so did one of my kids, my manager, my agent, and my attorney. It would be reasonable to conclude that I'm shady and involved in a business that's not terribly legal. Well, Donald Trump is now a felon. His campaign chairman is a felon. So is his deputy campaign manager, his personal lawyer, his chief strategist, his national security advisor, his trade advisor, his foreign policy advisor, his campaign fixer, and his company CFO. They're all felons, judged by the company you keep. It's a cabal of convicts. So it's not that I'm not willing to vote for conservatives. I said I would have voted for Mitt Romney. Seemed like a decent family man. Now, he looks like he's the publisher of Yachting Weekly, so he's not terribly relatable as a big money guy. But I'm not somebody that I like. The second Bush, George Bush Senior's son. I liked him. I thought he was a decent American, a decent human. I guess he's got some artistic qualities now. He paints a lot. I liked his wife, Laura Bush. I thought they were decent people. I like the Obamas. I didn't understand the outrage. Good family, seemed like nice people. But yeah, I just if everybody in your social circle is a felon, I don't think it's rigged. I don't think the world's against you. And to get people to agree on anything, 34, 0 for 34. I mean, that's a batting slump even the New York Mets could be impressed with. 0 for 34. So. It's just, when you're constantly trying to sell me on an America that I don't see, I'm not saying inflation's not an issue, but I get on airplanes all the time, and it's not a bunch of rich people. I don't fly private. I couldn't tell you the last time. I fly private maybe every couple of years. It'll be a family thing. We're trying to get everybody in the same flight, but not very often. I don't live in a fancy neighborhood. I get on planes. There's people in normal clothes. They don't look rich to me. and the planes are all full, and the hotels are all full, and the freeways are all full. That means people are going to work. You're trying to sell me on this story and this narrative that's just not true. Well, Colin, you're out of touch. Out of touch to what? I have single people that live next to me, young families that live next to me. People aren't grousing. They're not miserable all day. Now, they're not talking politics, but, Trump's entire game plan is the country is in a free fall. Maybe in the Trump-centric neighborhoods it is. It's not anywhere for my sister, who lives rurally. Doesn't have a lot of crime in her neighborhood. I don't. My friends don't. We live all over Los Angeles.
In one of those big, scary cities that voted for liberals.
I don't know. Everybody was saying hung jury. I didn't. But when everybody in your team, everybody in your group, your cabal is a felon, maybe the world is not against you. I mean, it is New York City. It is New York City, I get it. You're gonna have Peel. Maybe it'll drive up this fundraising. But stop trying to sell me on everything's rigged. The country's falling into the sea. The economy's terrible. The economy's okay. It's not like on fire, but get on a plane, find all the empty seats. I don't see them. Those aren't cheap. Either hotel rooms over Memorial Weekend. I like living in Portland. I like growing up on the coast of Washington. I like living in LA. I have a place in Chicago. I love it. I have really good friends and go regularly to Rhode Island. I love that. Maybe some of you are just unhappy. Maybe you're only happy when you're unhappy. But the America that I live in is imperfect, but compared to the rest of the world,
I can
you're doing
patch you up
okay.
if you need it. For a small
And if you're
fee,
not,
of
is it
course.
possible? Just possible. I'm not even saying probable. Is it possible that your life has just been miserable
Tell me
for
your
the last 4
symptoms.
years? It's not exclusively the fault of somebody in 1600 North Pennsylvania Avenue.
Feeling sick. I
Maybe
think
it's not
radiation.
all
Blood
their
pooling in the
fault.
gums. Signs of anemia. Yeah, we better clean you up. Done. Now,
Welcome
was
to
there
the
anything else
official
bothering you?
YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd Podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. You want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. Well, I have leaned on my next guest from time to time. I DM, but it was totally appropriate. Formerly Erica Nardini, now Erica Ayers Badon, is the first CEO of Barstool Sports, now the CEO of Food 52. She has written a book, Nobody Cares About Your Career, which I laughed at because I watched a stand-up comedian on TikTok a couple of days ago. And he said, that thing about your anxiety, nobody cares because we all have it. Mm-hmm. You care, your therapist cares. Talk to that person. So when you say nobody cares about your career, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think, so it's always great to see you. I'm so happy to be here. You're one of my favorites. I think nobody cares about your career is exactly that, which is it's a good reminder that really nobody cares what you do all day. And I think a lot of times people get tripped up in their careers, especially when they're young, of what's everybody else going to think and what will people say if I take this job or I don't succeed at this job or I'm an absolute mess, all of which will be true. And I really thought it was important just coming out of my Barstool experience, coming out of, 20 plus years in media and marketing and sports of, hey, like nobody really cares what you do all day. So do something that makes you happy.
You know, when you first took the Barstool job, Dave's a very driven, very polarizing, but hardworking guy. And I viewed Barstool as a viable brand, a bit of a tornado that kind of needed guidance. It was just kind of flying all over the place. When you got to Barstool, what was the first thing as you kind of take a couple of weeks to kind of get your arms around the girth of it, the size of the company? What was the first thing you said, okay, this is good, but this we have to course correct?
So the first, there was a lot of things like that.
You're smiling.
I'm like, where to begin? I would say the biggest things there was two things that were very distinct at the beginning. One was that Dave wasn't exactly sure who was on the payroll or not. It was a lot of there were a lot of guys in Boston with Barstool JJ, Barstool insert first name here. And they seemed like they worked for Barstool. They didn't work for Barstool. Dave wasn't clear if they paid them or not. So that there was a lot of who is this person and do they actually work here? That was, I would say, the first chapter of okay, we've got to solve for this. And then the second was, those first couple of years, we had a lot of people who had Barstool in their handle that had nothing to do with Barstool. They just liked Barstool. They were fans and they just looked like they worked for us. And then the second was the P&L. So no one at Barstool had ever seen a P&L, managed a P&L, thought about a P&L. The Barstool P&L had horses on it. It was, it was just this cockamamie assortment of costs. And Dave had run from the beginning of, really profitable business. Once he got this thing up and running, it was profitable and it was private. So nobody ever looked at what the costs were. And one of the things when I got there was okay, we actually need to get a handle on what the costs are. So those would be the two things.
Yeah. Yeah. And, sometimes your greatest asset can be your greatest liability. Dave is very strong-willed, obviously. And it's a controversial, maybe that's too strong. It's a polarizing brand to some. I don't think its audience sees it as that. But you were put in a position multiple times in the first couple of years to defend it. Were you always comfortable with it? I mean, did you have to kind of shift who you were from a Microsoft and a Yahoo that are more corporate to Barstool? Or did you find yourself in the first couple of years thinking, man, this is a little bit of a tsunami I haven't faced
it's like
before.
The tiger by the tail. I remember the day I got hired, I was watching The Rundown, which was live from Dave's apartment in Manhattan. And they had a guest on. And the guest, it was live, which they rarely did, but I was really pushing them. I had worked for Barstool probably for 3 months by the time I actually started. From the minute I got into the interview process, I was working for Barstool. But the guest made a bunch of racial slurs. And I remember watching it live and just being like, oh my God, what am I walking into here? And Barstool was very, much smaller at the time. So the only people that picked it up were local Boston,
keep your eyes open.
Kind of Boston sports media folks. But it was it made me realize how fast it was and what a tightrope Barstool was on. And, one of the things that I think is really the Barstool talent, Dave, Dan, Kevin Clancy, they're very disarming. They seem very affable. They're very charming, to some, maybe not others, but they're wickedly smart. And so to keep up and to tread the line of comedy, it was very difficult. So, there was a lot of that. I was for public. I had worked in startups and at big companies. Barstool was just very alive. Still is very alive. And that it was real time. It was building a company real time in the public eye.
So it's 2024, and let's talk about something really, really important. If you're ever injured, check out Morgan & Morgan. It's America's largest injury law firm, and they are there for you. Over 100 offices nationwide. Think about that. More than 1,000 lawyers with over $20 billion, that's a B, $20 billion recovered for over 500,000 clients. Things happen in life unexpectedly. submitting an injury claim with Morgan & Morgan is really, really easy. Like winning in the NFL is hard. We know that quarterbacking in the NFL is hard. Submitting a claim is easy. If you're ever injured, check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/Colin or dial #law from your cell phone. Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting for you to get a full and fair compensation if there's an unexpected accident in your life, and I've had a few. So I worked in Oregon for several years, and befriended Phil Knight, and I'm a broadcaster, but I've always liked business. My dad got me into the stock market when I was young. My kids have been in it since I was 8, 9 years old, and so he had a manifesto, an opening manifesto when he started Nike. Like number one was, we are in the business of change. That, you know, but number 9 is something that I have experienced at The Volume, my little podcast digital company. Number 9, and I talked to my staff recently about this, was it won't be pretty. And that's something I think as younger people tend to be a tad more fragile and easily offended. I've talked to some people and said, I'm not sure you're a good fit for my company. I view fragile as a weakness and relentless as the ultimate strength. That we all step in shit and you've got to get over it fast, and don't let one interception become 2 and one bad day become a week. So at Barstool, it's anti-fragile, but there are lines across that. And so was there ever a line for you that you, even with Dave, a strong-willed person, that you had to say, you know, because he's a bright guy, obviously, but let's talk about that it's not pretty. Starting a business it's not pretty all the time.
It's rarely pretty, you know, and I think I love that line, and that's really the essence of this book, which is your career is built over a lot of mundane, ugly days with 1,000 mess ups, and if you cannot, you know, if you can't fail, you're screwed. And what was brilliant about Barstool was that it was always trying to understand the line. And that's what made it so interesting, and also so alive and so captivating to fans, but also so difficult on the business, where I always had to have multiple lines of revenue because I didn't know Tuesday afternoon we could be offending an advertiser. We could have said something that's flaring up in the New York Post. I never knew what was going to happen. So safety and calm could come from having multiple levers to keep payroll going and the business happening. But I agree. I think the bigger, you know, it's funny, it's cool not to like work now. I think there's something, leisure seems more fun than work. And building a company and a brand and a business like The Volume or building Barstool it's a mission. It's going to be ugly. Everyone's going to screw up. You're going to yell at people. You're going to get yelled at, you know? So it's becoming a smaller and smaller number of people who want to sign up for that, which I think is really unfortunate.
Yeah, well, it's fortunate for us boomers who like to work and get great. I love working. I you know, it's interesting how people view success. For me, in my little world, I view success as the ability, without meddling, to create the best creative content I can with a team. It could be a podcast, television, radio. If I have a team, we're being creative, doing the best we can. I thought yesterday I had my best show in 6 months, and there was nothing going on. Our staff had a really good meeting. That to me is success. And in a company with multiple units and platforms, there's varying degrees of success. Did you have an overarching theme or belief system on what success was for now Food 52 or Barstool?
Yeah, it's similar. I'm like you, where success is hard earned and hard fought, and it also can be quite small. It's a good show. It's a great meeting. It's accomplishing something, getting something done. look, when I got to Barstool, I just didn't want to get fired. Like I was like, I don't know what I've
Right.
stepped into. Everyone was like, this is going to be your last job because there's no way this is going to work.
Yeah.
But success for us, it was really always about learning. Like, can we do something we don't think we can do? Can we go someplace where we've never been before? Could we
Right.
invent a way of doing things that hadn't been done? And Food 52 will be the same. It's a startup. It's, how do we create content? How do we showcase stories and products and bring joy to people's homes? And Barstool's different. It's making people laugh and talking to guys and mostly covering sports and entertainment, but it's really not that different at the core.
Yeah, it's you've got multiple things here in terms of advice, and I wrote some of them down. I'm always a little reticent to give advice. I'll give an opinion.
Okay.
But my life, child of divorce, growing up rurally, kind of a lonely kid. I always feel like, well, nobody had my childhood.
Yeah,
so
what am I going to say?
I'm not going to give advice. Yeah, but I do have strong opinions on advice. Have you ever? I'll give you the best piece of advice I got, and then I'll ask you for the best and worst piece. So, I was in college and I was broadcasting, and I called the Seattle Mariner announcer, and I said, I want to be a baseball announcer. What should I do? And he said, go to the baseball winter meetings. Peter Ubroth was commissioner, and pass your card out. And sometime over the course of a year, I went to a Mariners game. Dave Niehaus was a legendary broadcaster, the late Dave Niehaus. My, oh my, big, resonant, rich voice. And when I got into the upstairs, I don't know how the hell I talked my way into it, but I got into the Mariners booth, and he grabbed my program, and he was just about to do the pregame show, and he was a classic smoker.
Okay.
He had this rich voice, kind of intimidating, like the Marlboro Man. And he wrote this down in my program, and I think this was the best advice, and it was so simple. He said, he had one of those Sharpie pens. He goes, if you want to sit here, really want to sit here, you will. And so he put it all on me, right? It wasn't about his advice. It was about my
Intention.
willingness. And I always thought, God, that's great advice. What's the best advice, Erica, you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received, I received two pieces of advice. One from my dad, which was, my dad was a philosophy professor, and his advice was,
No wonder you're so
I don't
smart.
know. His advice was always, the best control is no control, which paid out handsomely in my Barstool time, I will say. But that you shouldn't try to hold anything so tight. Like, you've got to let things, you have to move with things, and you have to watch how things move.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of advice was just to work your ass off in your 20s. That you will never regret just doing any job humanly possible in your 20s. Learning as much as you can, doing as much as you can, working as much as you can.
God, that's great
It's
advice.
just good advice.
It
There's
really
nothing
is.
to lose.
Well, you generally don't have kids. You don't have a lot to lose. You have tons of energy. I mean, in my 20s, I could drink back to back nights, show up Thursday, ready to go.
And then start it up again Friday night. Now you're like, I keep drinking.
Erica Ayers Badon joining us. So when in my business, this is almost me asking for your opinion. I kind of feel like we're in the fifth inning of sports betting. Is that the easy money, the handout money is gone. You have to earn it now. You have to have a following. People have made their big bets on personality. But it's still, we have many states, and California eventually, that will have legalized sports betting. And I think podcasting similarly is about the fifth or sixth inning. I still think there's tremendous growth, but people have made their bets and will continue. Am I wrong? Do you think I think we're middle to sixth inning on both sports betting and podcasting. What say you?
I agree. I think sports betting, there was such hype at the beginning, right? The PASPA repealed and the frenzy and the energy and the delusion that the TAM, which would be the total addressable market, was infinite, right? Like every state is going to legalize. There's going to be millions and millions and millions of sports bettors. They're going to spend all of their disposable income betting. A lot of that proved to be false. And, you know, what I think you're also seeing in sports betting is it became very quickly an arms race between really two big players, maybe three on the outside, but two. And it became increasingly prohibitive to play, and the business itself isn't that great. Like I think the big sober, you know, sports betting has sobered because it's quite an ugly business if you cannot take that customer and convert them into something else. So I'm with you. I think that you'll see in sports betting, you know, Texas, California, you see bigger states roll out. There'll be a mini hike. I think affecting both sports betting and podcasting though is a bigger trend, which is it's impossible to break out talent now. You know, if you look at music, when's the last time that an unknown star out of nowhere became huge on the pop charts? Like it's not happening anymore. Same out of TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. Like you're not seeing the come up of stars the way you did 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. You know, one of the things that made Barstool so powerful was we had built enough scale so that we could launch our own stars inside of Barstool, and you will do the same. But unless you have that platform, unless you have that lily pad to launch on, it's becoming very hard to get talent. And so I think that will affect both the sports betting business, obviously, but certainly the podcast business.
We are getting closer to crowning NBA champ, and with the action heating up on the court, hotter than ever, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. It's great. I've got it. You should. Takes less than 90 seconds. Official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. Okay, now we got the conference finals. Pacers, Celtics, Wolves, Dallas Mavericks. That's so great. Live betting, same-game parlay, odds boost, so much is covered. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like a team to win. You go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, again, download it 90 seconds, select your squad, place your bet. It's that simple. Okay, new to DraftKings. It's called No Sweat Bet. This is a new one. It's easy. It's called No Sweat Bet, up to $1,500. Just deposit at least $5. That's it, $5. $5. That's it. And you'll get a bonus bet back if your bet doesn't hit. Right, if your bet doesn't hit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. The code is Colin. That's me, C-O-L-I-N. DraftKings Sportsbook app. Download Colin, C-O-L-I-N. New customers, No Sweat Bet. Up to $1,500. You get. If you just deposit $5 and your first bet doesn't hit, only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Yeah, it was a double-edged sword when FS1 lost Shannon Sharp. It definitely really punctured my network, or our network. But I remember telling my staff, we're going to do whatever it takes to find the money to pay Shannon Sharp. And we created a show, Nightcap, with Ocho, Gilbert Arenas, and Shannon, and it's been good for everybody. He wins, we win. But I remember telling people like Logan Swain that this just doesn't happen. This is basically Matt Stafford on the market, and the Rams get him. Like you just do whatever it takes. Jim Harbaugh's on the market.
You just got to get him.
Hire him to be your coach, right? And we did. I was literally like, do I have to buy him a Rams?
What do I got to do? Tell me what I got to do.
I didn't know. I'm like, he's a Hall of Famer. What do I do? How do I get him? And then I didn't want to intrude on his life, so I had to wait like 3 weeks before I
don't want to be creepy,
I made an offer.
Hey.
Yeah, I don't want to be weird guy jumping in. He worked for my company, our company. In chapter 6 of your book, in the book again, Nobody Cares About Your Career, and I strongly, just so many little lessons in here. In chapter 6, I'll start the sentence and you can finish it, but it's an interesting chapter. If you're not willing to grow, tell people what that's about.
Oh, so I think you're wasting everybody's time and mostly your own. And what I really have come to believe about work, and I'm more like you, Colin, which is I don't think anyone should really follow my advice. I wouldn't necessarily follow my advice, but I do have a lot of opinion and I've spent a lot of hours doing this. But I think work is tuition you get paid for. So, when you sat in the Mariners box and, a luminary said, it's up to you to fill the seat. Work is tuition. It's you are getting paid to learn. You're getting paid to be smarter. You're getting paid to do the reps. You're getting paid to work out. And I think that kind of mindset is very important to being fulfilled at work and happy at work. Like, I'm very fulfilled at work if I'm busy and I'm learning and I'm doing things, I'm fixing things, and I'm jumping in things. If everything is great and easy sailing and you're coasting and it's predictable, that's when I get nervous. And I think that mindset of being willing to put yourself out there to fail and try things as much as you can is ultimately what gets people the opportunity for that dream job or that dream moment or that dream experience, because you will have built yourself into a new person who is ready for that and capable of it.
It's funny. My sister and I talk about this, that we had a British mother and a successful optometrist, small town optometrist dad, who later in life was an alcoholic, but never, he was like a happy drinker. Like, he went to work, he was sober. He was never cruel, mean-spirited. So I didn't have any of that kind of stuff. But I've said to my sister, we lived in the same house, I said, I like to sort of, it's probably some psychological term. I'll project when I talk to people about my childhood how rough it was, and oh boy, small town, and then I think to myself, my stepdad was my little league coach. My mom was British and really funny and had a British accent and just saw the world differently. My dad was really a bright guy, like had these little nuggets of wisdom. But the one thing my parents gave me is they didn't helicopter. They were, my mom was huggy kissy, dad wasn't, most dads weren't. And that I was allowed to fuck up a lot. And my mom grounded me one summer. I started a small fire that was not great near the house. But one of the things I see is that I think parents think they're doing a great job. They're calling on their kids' behalf. They're getting them internships. They go to prep schools. And I got to tell you, it creates this sort of personality where you just waste it. Things are easy. It's like, and there's just something about being allowed to mess up. And I've told my kids before, my kids are really good students, and I'm like, they'll ask questions, and I'm like, you figure it out.
Exactly.
It's not my paper. And I'm not harsh on my kids if they get they struggled in a class. But when you were hiring a lot of people at Barstool, and it's something at the volume, we really vet who we hire. Like, we really vet, and still, sometimes you miss. But the average person you were hiring, were you impressed? Were you disappointed? Was it what you expected? Talk about, and now that at Food 52, talk about the process of what you're seeing. Bill Maher complains that all of his young writers see the world the exact same way, and he doesn't want that. Yeah,
I think, I think one thing we did well at Barstool was we just hired, it was misfits, we hired young and we hired out of college, and mostly our best hires had worked for Barstool for 4 years being interns for us on, doing the Viceroy program, which is the college program. But I would see the kids roll in from the prep school or the big, the nice college, and they were boring. And B, they were vanilla and kind of uninteresting. And we always hired the kids, and the people who I like now and always frankly have liked are it's the guy who's editing basketball trick shots in his bedroom instead of going out and like, drinking 4,000 high noons. It's not the popular kids. It's not the kids who did everything right. It's the kid who had something they were interested in and worked really hard at it. And I think resilience, I think there's two things. I think kids right now are very, very rarely bored because they mostly have phones, which just placate them.
Right.
And two, they are helicoptered. It's funny. I remember interviewing a guy once, and he was like, "Hey, look, if I'm to take this job, I really need you to talk to my mom." And I was like, "Bro, like that." Like, sure, I'll talk to your mom, but like, if you need your mom's approval to take this job, or somehow I'm beholden to your mother because you work for me, I was like, forget it. I've had people be like, I need you to talk to my wife. And I also was like, I don't love that either. So I think people are codependent in weird ways, and people aren't able to think independently. And this, if you're in a startup or you're in the heat of the moment, or whether you work in something glamorous like content or radio or sports or whatnot, or you work at like a computer company, you got to be able to make decisions. You have to be able to work under pressure. You have to be able to mess up and be like, oh shit, I fucked up, I got to fix this. And if you can't do that when you're young, you're kind of screwed by the time you're 50, because then what do you know? What have you learned? What have you done?
I cannot imagine. First of all, I wouldn't hire somebody who said you got to talk to 100%. And the reason I wouldn't is because your judgment is so poor. When that came out of your mouth, you thought that was a sales pitch. Like, for fuck's sake, what are you saying? Yeah. Like, that you should literally say, you have to talk to my mom about her casserole. It's the best casserole.
You love casserole. Yeah.
God, you got to stop that sentence right there. It's interesting. I saw something, browsing the internet, and I do think there's really a lot of smart people. I've hired people off, X. Mm-hmm. I called you one time for advice, and I said, should I be on TikTok? I said, I don't know how to monetize it. And do you remember the advice you gave me?
I probably said, like, get on TikTok. Who cares about the monetization?
That's exactly what you said. You said, get on it, build an audience, you'll figure out the monetization later. And that's an interesting part, because when you're at Barstool, or now the CEO of Food 52, how long are you willing to commit to something before you see profits, or at least reasonable monetization?
Oh, if I see audience growth, forever. I am a highly impatient person, but if you put talent on a platform or create content for a platform and it gets traction, you've got to the longer you do that, the more you let that marinate, the further you explore with it. Yeah. I will wait weeks, months, years. I would wait years. Yeah. Because the reality is, if you like what you the do, more audience you grow, and if you find, you've got to first you have to have something to say, right? And then you've got to find people who actually want to listen to you and care what you have to say. And then you want them to play with you, right? You want to engage with them. And then you want them to advocate for you. And maybe then you start not just saying one thing, you're saying three things or doing three things. The longer you wait to monetize that and ask them to do something for you in return, which is to buy a product or support a sponsor, it creates this pent-up demand that is really, really palpable. If you look at, Dave's the best at this. If you look at Miss Peaches, Miss Peaches is arguably the biggest personality at Barstool Sports right now. Do you know Miss Peaches? You got to know Miss Peaches.
Oh, sure, the dog. Yeah.
So,
who eats his remote.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But there were a lot of companies, I imagine, who were like, oh, Dave, like, pimp our dog food, and Dave, like, support this, support that. And he held. And the hold that pause,
be
that
effective
hold
without the
before
right
you
gear.
monetize is not lost time. It's actually a huge advantage. And that's how I think about platforms. If you can grow, it's like having a baby. You know what I mean? You're just like really pregnant and then you have the baby. Like growing audience and waiting to monetize, it is a very powerful tool that most people don't have the stamina to wait for.
Yeah, we
Yep.
didn't at the volume take any.
What do I tell y'all every day?
VC money.
I say, y'all boys, the money's gonna
I
come.
just
You
said I
bootstrapped
won't,
it.
I won't take a salary. Yeah, we
We are
bootstrapped it.
enjoying ourselves.
And I don't necessarily.
Let's just enjoy, have fun, make great content. That's why I'm like, what's the point of rushing? We stream every day. Monetization. I stream 12 hours a day, man. Entertaining shit.
Necessarily know. I'm not a control freak. I like to pass the ball. I've got really smart people. What is the value? You don't get the big payoff. What is the value? Because whether I sell it or not, I think I want the control to make sure I don't feel responsible necessarily for Fox Sports employees or iHeart
Yeah.
employees. I feel incredibly responsible for volume employees. I lose
Yeah,
sleep.
they're your people.
That's, they're my people. They're my army. And so, it's, and I'm being selfishly, I'm asking this. And I've thought about this before because people say, oh, you built it to sell it. And I'm like, no, I didn't really. I would consider a really cool partnership. But
see what you
know,
have.
obviously Dave at some point could have, didn't. Now Dave was different. Dave bootstrapped it for a decade
long
before he made the money.
Absolutely.
People don't know. Dave was out there making nothing forever.
12 years.
So of nothing, just hustle.
Just love. Yep.
So I get that. What is the downside, I guess, to the bag, to selling it big?
The bag has huge downside. And I think you're right. I think you're building something. Look, if you, Colin, wanted to be like, I want the highest ROI on my dollar invested, you would not probably create a media company. You would put it in the stock market or buy a piece of art or do something. So this is a labor of love, I think, and that's partly what makes it important. I think the bag is tough because the bag, when you sell out for the bag, unless you have a huge motor to keep going and you have a big reason now that you're richer and more comfortable than ever before, if you have to find, that's an obstacle to overcome with fans. And I think a lot of times when people get the bag, they become a little lazy. Like you get better taste, you want to travel, you buy your second house, like you're not hungry to go build the mission, continue on the journey. Like there's something to being hungry. The best years at Barstool, I think people would say were probably the earliest years. And then they were the beginning of my years because it was such a grind. We didn't know if we would make it. We still had so much road to climb. The best years were not after the Penn acquisition, so I think getting the bag also comes with responsibilities and changes things. And that's hard for a mission-driven, passion-driven brand.
Yeah. My favorite part of the Barstool story is my least favorite part of traveling, which is turbulence.
Yes.
So I hate it on planes, and I love it when I read the Phil Knight book, by the way. People have no idea how close they were out of money
all the
multiple
time.
times, all the time. So when you entered Microsoft, what years were those?
Oh my gosh, that was like early 2000s, like 2001.
Okay. So they were established. Bill Gates, Paul
Big
Allen,
time.
Steve
Oh, it
Ballmer.
was good living.
Big time. But what were the challenges of being, now Apple was a rival, but what were the challenges of a company where everybody was at least stock wealthy?
I mean, what you find, I think, is you become more bureaucratic. You become more inwardly focused. The problems become turf wars inside of a company, or which group is going to get. I mean, I worked for a group that lost, I think, $500 million a quarter. And we traveled first class all around the world, like nobody cared. But it was a lot of politics. And I think that's what you trade. You trade politics and posturing and bureaucracy. That comes with cash. When you're hungry and you're on the jump and you're on the come up, it's so satisfying because it's all new and it's all fulfilling.
Yeah, there's the old axiom, it's a truism actually, is that in wartime, comfort food sales skyrocket in America, and in peacetime, bungee jumping, skydiving, adventure sales go up. People, right, your problems are different, your fun is different based on your economic set. For the record, there is some argument in America. I don't think the economy's great, but I also don't think it's in a free fall. I mean, if it was, then volume wouldn't be growing at the rate it's growing. You're CEO of Food 52. I often mention that I get on planes, there's no empty seats, and these are not rich people. I don't fly a lot of private, if at all. Hotels, try to book them. They're busy. You tell me, as a CEO of Food 52, how is your economy? What do you see?
I see that people are spending. You know, I think there's angst. I think there's like low-level angst. You look at the housing market and the interest rates like that, you know, the houses aren't moving, which is actually kind of interesting for the Food 52 business, because if you don't have a new house, you don't need so much stuff. You're not redecorating, you're not setting new tables, all that kind of stuff. So in my economy, that's an interesting factor that I'm watching. But by and large, people are spending. Americans are great consumers. And that, you know, Americans like things. They want new things. They want to entertain. They want a t-shirt. They want better cookware. Like the consumption, Americans like to buy things and to consume. And I think we'll always like that.
You know, one of the lessons we learned early, and it was hard because we looked at Barstool and we watched The Ringer and a lot of different companies. And one of the things very early I said is, there are things Barstool does well that we never will. I said, I'm not into selling merch. Like if we could sell some hoodies, but that's a merch company. I said, we're not. And we fooled around with it. And I said, guys, it's just not what we do. There's things that I think the writing arm of The Ringer, I'm like, I don't have the passion for writing. Like, it's not my bag. So, but I love doing live stuff and YouTube stuff and gambling stuff, and that's what we did well. But it's
if you need fixing up,
are there things?
Patch me
Somebody
up,
once gave me advice: double down on stuff that works and bail immediately if something doesn't. Don't fall in love with your ideas. Fall in love with people. Is there anything you did at Barstool that just didn't work, and you're like, okay, bad instinct?
1,000 things. I think you're right. So, you know, Barstool thinks in t-shirts. That's how people signal they're part of whatever brand. And what we did well was we grew 90 brands in my time there. And, you know, 20 of them were pretty successful. But because we thought in t-shirts, everybody thought in t-shirts, and we sold t-shirts the same way we, you know, pimped out podcasts. But there was a lot that we failed on. One thing that we failed on was we built this really stupid subscription product called Gold, because at the time, and this is also like I think a cautionary tale of having an investor, is, you know, the Chernin guys, and I love the Chernin guys, but they were like, hey, at some point somebody's going to need to buy it. So you need to hustle up and figure out like, who's that going to be. And until Pasco was repealed, it always looked like it would be a media company. Now, it was very obviously not going to be a media company, but media companies wanted subscribers, right? Everyone's moving to the race to subscribers and the race to streaming. So we built it.
Why Athletics sold to the New York Times.
I was glad to help
we built a subscription product, but the Barstool guys and girls are such, you know, they're whores for attention. And I say that in the best way possible. The idea of putting something only behind a paywall was against the religion. and it was so stupid. And
Thanks for
we
your
built
help,
great
pal.
tech. We built, a seamless way
I
to
was
do
glad to
it.
help out.
Stoolies, to their
I
credit,
can't
bought
argue with
it.
your timing.
But it was
Who
it
knows
was
what would have
forced.
happened to
You know,
us if
you
you
know when you
hadn't been.
feel like you're doing something wrong and that, like, your
Thanks
heart's
for your
not
help
in and
fighting them
isn't
off.
working. That was one of those things. We launched a grooming product called Wood, which I still think
showed
was
up just in the-
kind of an interesting concept. We partnered with a company. We made a line of grooming products, but there wasn't a talent or personality behind it, and no one felt like it was their own, so it became nobody's, and it was
Yeah.
a failure. So we had things like that littered all over the Barstool Road.
It's interesting, the paywall. I've been, again, kind of reluctant to go there, but I have Sirius and
Yep.
Netflix and Apple TV and Amazon Prime, and I buy UFC. Is it inevitable? I mean, is it just, I say to myself, I don't want to go behind a paywall, but frankly, I'm behind 8 of them.
Yeah.
I pay for 8 of
Yeah.
them, 9
Yeah.
of them. Where are you on the paywall?
I don't love a paywall.
Neither do
I
I.
get the paywall. I get it. My friend Barry Weiss created an amazing, she created the Free Press. She created an amazing paywall business, which is news. But it's not, I don't love it. I'm more interested in how many people can you entertain, or how many people could you talk to? And the idea of only talking to a certain group, I think is kind of problematic for society, where everybody's just in their own little echo chamber. And 2, I think it's for me, it's less interesting, and that probably is wrong from a business perspective, but I think broadcast is interesting.
I didn't like when the MLS went to Apple, because my takeaway is they lost casuals.
Yes.
And that what happens is you only get a tribal following. And I don't want just a tribal following. I like pushback.
Yes.
I want to hear from my haters. I want to.
I don't know how many times she's gonna say yes, but it was a lot.
What?
Let's do this. Heads up.
Sir.
Over here.
Got it, sir.
Where's the freaking guy just freaking killed?
Heads up.
What do you need? An exchange of supplies could be useful. I wonder what's in here.
Yes.
Now here's something we need. Ammunition.
Greetings, sir.
Excuse me.
Looking for a weapon?
Let's see what you got.
Great.
Look alive.
Sure. Let's take stock. You're not going to be light on your feet with all that gear you're carrying.
Lost track of how many blisters I got.
Look alive.
An exchange of supplies could be useful. We've got very little intel on this place. What we can learn.
That is not acceptable. Imogene is missing and I want her found.
She's not missing, Mother.
Do you know where she is?
No, but that
Your
doesn't
sister
mean...
is missing and I want her found. What else is Edward for if not to keep the family safe?
I'd be happy to send someone to look for her, ma'am. It's not
Mother, Edward has better things to do than sending someone out to find Imogene. Again.
Imogene is out there somewhere, maybe even lying dead in a ditch, and you don't even care.
I'm not going to have Edward drop everything just because Imogene decided to take a lover again.
Jack, how dare you speak
Hey,
like disrespect?
So did you find out what happened to the courier?
I can't believe you don't care what happens to your sister.
If she wanted us to know where she went...
When do I get paid?
We'll get to that. First, I need to know what happened to the courier.
I can't bear to think what happened to Imogene right now.
I'm not Imogene's babysitter if she chooses to...
Some raiders set up camp near Parsons and ambushed him. I took care of them.
I don't like raiders operating so close to Parsons. I hope this isn't the start of something serious. What about the serum he was carrying? Did you get any of it back?
There was only this one vial left.
Oh, good. I was afraid we wouldn't get any of it back. Here's your pay for the job. I'm throwing in a little bonus for bringing back the serum. That was good work. Now, as far as what's next. Oh, hell. I guess it's time you met Wilhelmina. Jack's not gonna be happy about it. Come on.
It must take an army of robots to keep this house so clean.
What happened to Imogene right now?
We've been over this, Mother.
Jack, I'll take care of it. Mrs. Cabot, don't worry. I'll send someone to find Imogene.
Thank you. I can always count on you. Why can't you be as devoted as dear Edward?
You shouldn't indulge her, Edward. It just makes her more impossible to deal with next time.
Just doing my job. Speaking of which, here's what we got back of the last delivery from Parsons. Raiders got the rest of it, I'm sorry to say.
Ah, good. Finally. This will help settle Mother down.
Imogene is Jack's sister. You probably figured that out yourself. She's, a little flighty. Impulsive. From time to time, she runs off. Usually with a new boyfriend. Then I send somebody to bring her home.
No problem. I'll bring her back.
The trouble usually isn't finding her. It's persuading her to come home. I don't know where she's gone, but I can give you a place to start. She's been spending a lot of time in Good Neighbor. That's a jazz club there, the third rail. Somebody there must know something. She's not known for keeping her mouth shut.
I know the third rail. I'll ask around there.
Only opens with a key.
Don't worry. I only test the weapons on customers I don't like. Feel free to browse.
Let's see what you have.
Purchase a variety in case of boredom. You're buying. Even...
Look, they don't want no trouble from the pal. No stone cold killers.
Toss out the trollmakers. Keep that in mind.
You step through the gate, and you got balls.
He's never been killed to be killed. Fine-looking weapon.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Don't have no head. Yeah.
Charlie serves the drinks. I deal with the drunks.
Hey. Yeah?
Excuse me, miss.
What's the matter, handsome? Don't tell me you didn't like the song.
I just wanted to talk to you.
Well, I thought that's what we were doing. Now, there's something special about you, isn't there? But don't tell me. Let me guess. Ah, that's it. You had that, I'm the smartest one here and I know it posture. There's something so irresistible about intelligence, don't you think? So what brings a man like you to my part of town?
I came here for the music.
So it's my turn to...
Right. I was wondering if we could get to know each other better.
Oh, really? Go on.
You, me, an evening walk under the streetlights.
And then what?
Music.
I knew you were something special, all right? Let me get my coat.
Yeah. Let's get out of here.
Let me get my coat.
Your iron strapped
Just
on.
won't fit anywhere else.
Friendly advice.
I haven't been out in town in too long. Thank you. I'm afraid my first love is always going to be the stage, though. I hope you understand. I just can't get too attached. I'll see you around, good neighbor. When I'm up there singing, I'll be thinking of you.
Magnolia.
I'll see you around, good neighbor.
Looking for a room?
Smashed.
I look like a bartender? Ooh, yeah, these days. She needs to do this, she needs to do that. Ain't funny.
Downstairs. Don't bother the other patrons.
Smell that? That's freedom.
Huh?
Yeah.
Peace, brother.
Hi.
Huh?
Buddy, I gotta be a lot more high or a lot more drunk to be bothered right now.
Paying customers only.
Yo. Do you know Imogene Cabot?
Name rings a bell. Kind of balmy. Haven't seen her in a while, though. Try Magnolia. She likes to make friends with the people. She might know more about this missing bird.
Hey, Magnolia.
You again. It's my lucky day. What do you need?
Do you know Imogene Cabot?
Imogene? Sure. I know her. I haven't seen her in a while, though. Were you a friend of hers?
She's missing, and her family's worried about her.
Well, I'm glad somebody's looking out for her. She seemed like a body that could use looking after.
Please, tell me what you know.
There was this preacher fellow who used to come in here all the time. One of the slick ones. Always going on about remaking your life and so on. Most of the customers wouldn't give him the time of day, but Imogene, she latched onto him for some reason. I don't suppose it hurt that he was easy on the eyes. Intense. Some women find that irresistible.
Pam, would you come over here a minute?
Is there a problem, Miss Magnolia?
No, this fine gentleman here was just looking for Imogene. Do you happen to know where that preacher fella came from?
Brother Thomas.
Yes, that's right. The one Imogene was always hanging on.
Had to throw him out. Wouldn't stop bothering customers with that salvation racket. Kept going on and on about joining him at the back bay. Then he'd shove those stupid flyers in your face. Here, I kept one of them, just in case he didn't pay his bar tab.
Well, thanks, honey. You were a big help.
Anything for you, miss.
I hope Imogene's all right. I didn't much like the idea of her going off with that preacher fella.
Listen to your counter. We've got radiation.
You have damping coil? Ah! Yoshu. Now, get nuclear fuel.
I'm ready.
The next step seems simple, but do not be deceived. 200 years ago, I launched all of Yangtze's high-yield nuclear missiles. As ordered, for 200 years, I have lived with that guilt, that shame. So much fire, such pain, but one missile failed to launch. You must go down. Remove the warhead, then bring it to me.
Why don't you get it?
Because I have different tasks. While you are getting warhead, I will prepare the reactor. But now I must warn you. There is danger. Wishen. Old crew. Still down there. Not okay like their captain. Worse. They do not harm me. But they will kill you. I cannot kill them. Still, they are my crew. My family. Jaren. All of us. But you must do what you must do.
Just playing some games, having a little chill fest. I'm about to come back later on the stream. Maybe some, probably like 5 hours, 6 hours of content. Probably be back around PM, I think. That should be best. Yeah, let's make it 2
Good day, dude.